Well, my Apple TV remote has been missing for 3 days now, and I've searched all the usual nooks and crannies. Do remotes honestly just disappear?
I have a brilliant idea for you, Apple, and it's called Find My Remote. I take Venmo. You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I filed my taxes the way I always do, in a mad freak out at the 11th hour looking for obscure receipts. I'm that guy, and I will never learn.
And who's the nut job who authorized taxes being due in springtime anyway?
Yeah, F you. Have such a good day. Hello, world, and welcome back to Have Such a Good Day, the show that wants you to do just that.
Episode 186, Sarah Lane. It's so good to see you and hear you. And y'all being with us. It's been a minute. How y'all doing out there?
Yeah, how are you? Heather and I took a little spring break last week.
A little hiatus, if you will.
There was just life. There was travel. There was health. There were all the things.
It was a black week, dark
these
week.
These things happen. Yes,
in television.
A dark week.
Very dark. You know, they call it in television. They call it dark week. If y'all don't know that, it doesn't mean anything about being dark or, gothic or anything.
No, it could.
Yeah,
it could.
I guess
it could. We could be dark for for dark purposes. Somebody asked me that recently. I had mentioned, I think they were like, oh, are you working on Monday? Maybe it was a holiday or something. Oh, no, we have a dark week. And they were like, I'm going to assume that means you have the week off. And I was like, yeah, like in sports, we call it a bye week.
Yeah.
Because I play a lot of sports. But yeah, a bye week, which, by the way, Heather, I don't know how often you know this term because you're familiar with sports enough to know the term.
Yeah, I played sports. We had bye weeks in soccer when I played. Yeah.
I always thought, for whatever reason, because I never thought about it, or I guess I never saw it written down, it was BI. Not like bisexual, but like a bi-weekly, bye week, meaning you skip a week. And the first time I saw it spelled as BYE, I was like a goodbye week? That's silly.
What I always thought. It is silly. It's like, bye.
Bye.
We'll see you on the flip,
Yeah, like instead of like a pause week or...
Isn't it funny that it takes you like a certain amount of time in life to like learn something? Like you already knew it, but like you learned how it was spelled and it was just like this huge epiphany. Like, oh, that's what that means.
Exactly. Or there's some clarification where you're like, I always, like, I didn't sound like an idiot, talking about or using this term or word, but I didn't totally understand why I was using it that way.
It didn't all come together at the time. It takes time. It takes that retrospect, that history. Well, y'all, welcome to the show that talks about the absurdity of everyday life for your and our entertainment. We're certainly entertained.
Yeah, by ourselves.
Yes, us too.
So thank you for being along for the ride. But yes, thanks to everybody who is along for the ride. I was trying to come up with something clever about episode 186, Heather, because I was like, 186, is that a cool... 86 means you get kicked out of somewhere. 187 is I think it's like a murder thing if you're caught. Shit. But 186 is, as far as I know, not totally significant for any reason besides the fact that we are in episode 186 of Have Such a Good Day. So look at us.
I guess it's like divisible by 2.
It is, yes.
Which is like not that amazing, but
no, it is. Hey, listen, if you're not a prime number, we're here for you.
I was thinking the other day, I think I said it was there a really good onomatopoeia. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like some like kind of unique. I was like, that sounds kind of. Oh no, you know what it was? I think it was the word smut, and I was like, I think that's kind of an onomatopoeia. Right? And then I was like, do I like onomatopoeias more than... I know that you love palindromes. Like, that's like your number one.
Palindromes make me happy. Yes.
Yeah. And I think onomatopoeias make me really happy. But like, I was like, do I like those more than puns? Because I really like puns. And my boyfriend's like, you like puns more. I was like, okay, thank you for clarifying.
I feel like you can have both. A pun maybe has a story behind it. Onomatopoeia is just like, smut sounds like smut.
It does. I really like that word. I was kind of like really like thinking about that word a lot the other day. It was really weird.
I
Oh,
don't know
speaking of smut,
if,
Sarah.
if that's something that we want to expand on all that much because, smut. But I think smut probably means a lot of different things to different
It
people.
does. It does. And the only smutty thing I want to talk about on the show today is I don't know about you. And I asked some of my text groups this question this morning. I am getting so many new, like a deluge of porny, smutty Instagram like followers. And I don't notice, I only notice them on my stories. Cause like, you see who looked at your stories. And then I have like 5 new followers at the top that are like, really disgusting names, and I'm trying to block them, as I go.
Yeah.
Like, why did this just happen? Like, I never used to have this problem.
I don't do stories on Instagram for no really good reason. I don't really look at people's stories either. It's like it's just one of those things I've decided I don't have time for. And there's a little bit of a not that I'm trying to, I don't know, be like weird, but if I look at somebody's post on Instagram, I might like it, I might comment, I might do neither, and they're none the wiser. But yeah, like you said, on a story, if somebody's paying attention, they'll see that I saw the story. It's not like I'm like, oh, so and so who's my friend on Instagram can never see that I saw it. But I'm like, the more I engage, even just viewing, the more I feel like someone will expect me to kind of know what they posted on stories. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've got the right idea here, but I just feel like the less I see of that, the less, the more I can be like, oh, I didn't even know you were at Disneyland yesterday.
I know. I totally know what you mean. I know. And it's like, there are some people out there or some friends, or I don't know, like I'm not calling anybody out, but I think some people will go out of their way to remind you that they're somewhere so that you can check their feed. Like, hey, because if you miss it, it's like, oh, well, you didn't see like how such a great time I had, like hint, hint.
I mean,
nudge, nudge.
I think the only thing that bugs me about those conversations is if someone's like, oh, well, it was on my story. Like, where were you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I was living life outside of your Instagram story or TikTok video or, Facebook, whatever, Reels. There's so many, different terms for the same thing. If I just say, so for example, okay, here's a good example. I'm on a thread with 3 other people in Instagram in messages. So it's like a group text within Instagram messages. And it's supposed to be mostly about sports. Happens to be me and 3 guys, but it doesn't matter. It could be anybody. And at first, I was like, yeah, I want to be part of the group. Like, I want to talk about sports. And I quickly realized, oh, you guys want to talk about sports all day. All day. And some of the sports stuff, then it kind of veers into more like pop culture stuff or entertainment or, we saw Drake at the Warriors game, that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, this is like years ago. I'm still on the thread. Nobody's kicked me off or really, called me out on it. But I'm like, I just don't check it. Because as soon as you see that I'm in there, now you're going to expect me to be in there. And if I'm just never there, then I'm never there.
And then you can see that someone is there, that they've read. I mean,
even if they don't
turn that off even.
I don't think so.
Because I think you can obviously turn it off. Like I don't totally understand why. Well, in fact, this is a question I wanted to ask you, Sarah.
Okay.
Why do people have read messages? Someone asked me this the other day. They were like, I don't understand why people have their read messages
read
on
receipts
text.
on. Yeah.
Read receipts. And it's like, I get it. Maybe they were saying, I get maybe for business reasons. Like maybe they're like, want to make sure that it went through this important memo, for tomorrow's meeting or something.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I couldn't really think of why, other than maybe you just want to know that people are hearing you.
So my position on this has changed.
I knew you'd have a position.
Yeah, I do. So I turned off read receipts.
Yeah, you used to have them on.
I used to have them on.
You did, I remember that.
Nothing bad happened. Like there was no like incident that changed my mind. But what used to drive some of my friends crazy, and these are the same friends who'd be like, how do you have text excerpts on when you have your screen locked on your iPhone. You know, like you can
Okay.
say, like, if you send me a message, you know, it's like Heather Frank sent you a message and you see the
Yeah,
little,
yeah,
you
I
know,
see. Yeah.
iMessage icon. And I used to have like, you know, it's like the first sentence or whatever would be visible. So I could kind of just like glance and get an idea of like, oh, is this really important? Or maybe it's just like, you know, we're continuing some ongoing conversation, no big deal. And a friend of mine once like looked at my phone and she was like, oh my God, like, how do you have the nerve to have those on? Like, what if Heather said something crazy about me and I'm sitting right here? And I was like, well, but she wouldn't. You
You're
know,
such a
I
risk
was
taker,
like,
Sarah.
my whole thing is like, maybe it's like from that like naive place of like, but I'm not really like talking shit about anybody in a, you know, in a way that that
Would make you
scenario
worry.
would like come back to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
And read receipts were the same way. I had a couple of friends in particular who were just like it's I mean it's insane that you want me to know when you saw my text, and I'm like, but why would I be hiding from you?
Yeah.
If you, okay, let's use you as an example again. If you, Heather, send me a text and for whatever reason I can't reply, or I'm just like in the middle of something else, but you see that I read it and we're not
Yeah.
like fighting, then you're like, oh, she saw it, you know? And like,
Yeah.
you know me well enough to know, like,
She's
okay,
probably
like if there was
driving
something
or
that had to be, you know, information that I had to get, I've gotten the information, I'll get back to you whenever. That was always my stance for years. And I was like, it's the polite thing to do. And, you know, other people were like, no, 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 no. I need way more control over, you know, when I want people to know if and when I saw stuff. And
Yeah.
by the way, since my stance has changed, you can now, like, I can turn on read receipts for my mom, you
Sure.
know, or,
Yeah.
you know, like a boyfriend, or, you know,
Sure.
somebody who's it's important that they get a sense of, you know, okay, she's there, she's, you know, she's active, you know, maybe Heather,
Yeah.
you have like business things like you mentioned that, you know, that would be good for, but you don't have to have it on for everybody. Didn't used to be the case. It was either on or off.
On or off. Yeah.
So I think that it's still a cool tool. For example, my mom has her read receipts on. And so when I send her a message, her read receipts are like, I'm like, Mom, are you ever off your computer or your iPad? Because like you really read
like
everything like
immediately.
within 5 seconds of me sending it. But you know, that's cool. Then I know. And you know, we either continue the conversation or the conversation's over. But I did turn them off after a while because I just felt like I was like a weird odd man out. Everyone else has them turned off because they want more privacy and a
Yeah.
little bit more control over, you know, when and where they're, you know, responding or, you know, initiating. And I guess I was like, yeah, it's kind of like a phone call in a way. It's
Yeah.
like you send me a text. Maybe if I see it right away, maybe like I was like fumbling for my phone and then it dropped in the toilet and now I have to like do something else for a while. Like
That
it's
probably
not
did
about
happen.
you, but the person now is going to think it's about
Think that
them.
it is. Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like, it's just a conversation I don't feel like having. So I turned them off.
It creates a strange atmosphere sometimes. I not for me really. I don't have a lot of like personal experience with it. I've never had them turned on, but it does. You do remind me that I could just turn it on for like. There's times. So my boyfriend has he has an Android, and so you know there's some weird communication with Android and iPhone
Yeah.
and like there's times when I'm like, did you not see that photo I sent you or that note or whatever? No, I didn't. And I'm like, oh, come on, I sent it like yesterday. And then we look on his phone and he actually didn't receive it. And like there's that. I mean, that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole other issue. Yeah. But yeah, I guess if you're it's very relationship dependent, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
For example, okay, so I finished my taxes. Today is tax day in the U.S. As of this recording, and you know I was really good about it last year. You know, I was on top of stuff early, and this year it was down to the wire, which is how I normally operate in many aspects of my life. And you know, the person that I pay to help me with my taxes, who I've worked with for some years now, it's like, I'm not hiding from her. Some of the stuff, like, I would want her to know that I read her note ASAP, you know?
Sure.
And, like, we're not going to, because we're not really friends to begin with. So it's not like there's some relationship ending thing that I would do by not getting back to her. I think she would be happier knowing, okay, Sarah saw it. She's going to get me that 1099 that I asked for, just now. So there are lots of examples where it's not, I don't know, it's not like a weird thing.
No, it's not. And it's funny because I just got an email from this banker who I've been kind of working with on some stuff, and I had sent her an email. Like, she requested some documents months ago. Finally sent them to her, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like finally going to get some information from her." I worked really hard on this balance sheet, and she never wrote me back. It was like she ghosted me, and I was like, "God, I mean, like maybe she saw my balance sheet and she was like, she was judging me or something." I don't know. But it did cross my mind. I'm like, why hasn't she written me back? I mean, it was like literally been like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And then she finally got back and apologized profusely. I saw your email and then it got lost in the shuffle. I mean, it happens. I mean, it does.
Of course,
And,
yeah.
And so I was just like, no big deal. It's fine. I'm just glad that there wasn't another reason. But in terms of like personal, I mean, I guess, yeah, like people who you want to keep tabs on your day to day, that, yeah, there's something nice to know that like they're alive, like, and they actually read it. And
I don't know. I guess let's say I had a nanny watching my kids, and maybe I was traveling or something, and feeling really weird about it, and I just wanted to, to not have to like, send a barrage of texts like, "Hey, are you seeing this? Are you okay?" Like the read receipt thing has its purpose. But I guess so many other people just feel really weird about it that I was like, well, okay, I'll just turn mine off. But I have a couple friends who still have them on. And I always kind of appreciate it because I'm like, coming from the other side of things, if I see somebody read my text and I say something like, "Hey, so good to hear from you. How are you doing?" And I see like read at 7:21 p.m. and I don't get a response, I'm like not mad about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, something probably came up. Maybe they're having dinner.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting how I'm desperate to know how y'all feel about this out there. Because
Are you desperate?
Fascinating.
Desperate,
I'm very desperate.
Heather?
I'm very
Help,
needy
Heather.
and desperate, Sarah.
Everyone. Heather needs help.
I need help.
She's desperate for info.
Yeah, because it's so subjective and it's just interesting. It's subjective, but yet we are in this together. Like you're communicating back and forth with other people who have their opinions on it. So it's kind of a tricky thing. I mean, I guess you could apply that to anything in life, but
listen, there are so many ways to sort of to not know all of the facts about why somebody behaves the way that they do, and to then come to conclusions, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're all talking about, right?
Yeah,
It's like we have this
totally.
modern technology that allows you to come to not necessarily the right conclusion, and sometimes could be detrimental to the conversation in general, or even a friendship or something like that.
Fantasy bubbles. We all have
I mean,
them.
I've got, and I won't call out anybody at all, but it's like every so often, I'll get like a Facebook message, say, at like 3 a.m. From somebody. And it's not like a weird message, but I'm like, well, you're in Pacific time, which is the same time zone I'm in. And I'm like, seems like kind of a funny time to reach out. Like,
Especially because we all go to bed at 9 p.m. these days.
well, so again, it's like, listen, you could be traveling. You could just, I don't know, have insomnia and wanted to say hi. It's not like, it's like a nude foot. It's not, that's not what I'm talking
Nothing
about.
scandalous, yeah.
No, just something where I kind of go like, there's a little information that I have just based on,
Totally.
the receipts of, this electronic message that was sent to me. And I wonder what you were doing. In fact, I asked one of my friends who did this. She happens to have receipts on. And she had sent me like a really nice, just like checking up on me type thing. And when I woke up in the morning, several hours later, I wrote like, why were you up at 3:45? That was my answer to her. And she was like, I couldn't sleep, menopause, and I had to laugh because I'm like, see, that's me all the time. But of course, I'm thinking, oh, if I send Heather a note in the middle of the night, she's going to be worried. Like, why were you awake?
Totally.
Or even if you
Totally.
were like, like who else did you send text?
Well, it's funny. The other night I did, well, not funny, but it's funny that we say that. It's funny. It's just like a way to start a sentence. But I got sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have like a slew of text messages from like 10:30 p.m., 11:30, where I have friends that are obviously staying up later than me. And one of my friends actually had to go to urgent care, and I felt really bad that I had gone to bed, and it was about 10:30. And I do, I have my Apple Watch on because I like to track my sleep. But it doesn't bing, and I didn't wake up from her text message. I just saw it the next day. But but I kind of felt bad that I didn't know about it, and it had to wait till the next day. She's fine, but stuff like that, where I know that you can set your settings where you can have certain people contact you any time of the day, for any reason.
Right.
I haven't really set that up, but enough about that.
A lot, I mean, I feel I chalk it up to the more setting options you have, the more you can make it work for you.
Exactly. I agree. I need to
like
do that.
my mom and I, when I actually don't go into do not disturb mode ever, just because I don't know why. I just would rather be disturbed. But I also sleep through lots of things.
Yeah.
I wear earplugs. I don't know. If my phone
Yeah.
is on silent, like how am I going to know somebody sent me a text message type thing?
Yeah, totally.
But she and I have like, we have like our like emergency pass through. She's
Yeah.
like, everyone else cannot contact me at 3 a.m., but you can.
Yes.
Like my phone will ring. It's
Yeah.
right on
I
the
know,
nightstand.
I need to do that actually for a couple people, but yeah, just it's fun to talk about this stuff. It's endless fodder,
Yeah,
but
it's not a one. What's the term?
one size fits all.
Yes, many sizes fit many people. Keep
This
your
is
read
very
receipts
true.
on.
Speaking of sizes,
Speak your truth.
Yeah, speak your truth. And speaking of sizes, man, and I don't want to get into this, but my iCloud just keeps filling up, and I can't keep buying iCloud space. So I got to like carve out like a big chunk of time to move files. I mean, mostly my photo album is like taking up most of the space, and I do take a lot of photos, and I take video. And I dump it on my computer, but I'm like, I need to like dump stuff on a hard drive at this point. And I
Yeah.
think obviously a lot of the audio files from our show, I haven't done any of that type of back end work for a long time. So I gotta put that into my schedule somewhere. But among that and sort of endless piles of work. It was funny. You mentioned taxes, and I had a nice chuckle reading your open earlier today because I know you so well, and I know how you you're trying to steer the plane to land, and it's very shaky. There's a lot of turbulence getting your taxes in, and I find it very amusing. But yeah, and the funny part of it is for me is that I had a similar experience this year, just getting the business taxes in. No, I haven't even done my personal taxes yet because I haven't even had time, so I had to take an extension. But the funny thing is I spent all this time getting them submitted to my CPA, and I was so proud of myself, like, woohoo, got back from my trip, did it all, got it in. And then I get a 10-page email back from my CPA asking like a million questions. And I'm telling you, this is going to be more work than doing my taxes, like preparing them.
Yeah.
Just going through her email bit by bit and confirming. So I'm like, and I've totally been putting it off. I finally finished traffic school, took forever. And I'm checking the boxes off my to-do list, but it's like, oh my God, when am I going to get to this 10-page email? Who has time for a 10-page email? I don't think I've ever received a 10-page email.
That's a long email. Yeah.
A long email.
I,
Yeah.
I didn't have 10 pages of responses, but I had something similar where, and I actually, I even considered, even though I've worked with the same person on my taxes for the last few years, and she's been immensely helpful to me. I mean, it's not even really like, oh, wow, she, does like funny numbering to get me like a tax return I don't deserve. It's not, it's so above board. She's better at, maximizing, what I can do and what I shouldn't do in order to, do everything right.
Yeah, of course.
And, and not get audited and things that we don't want to deal with. But last year, my work situation, because I had some freelance work the year prior that I didn't have last year. And so the whole reason that I ended up waiting to the last minute was not because I was trying to like screw myself or anyone else over. I was like, this is going to be easy. We just don't have, there's not like income sources that require follow-up questions. I haven't moved, well, that'll be different next year, but I haven't moved since last year. So like all of that kind of like home office stuff has not changed. Square footage, all the same, rent the same. And so I was like, this is just going to be like gravy. But sure enough, there was one, and it was healthcare related, because of course. And she was like, yeah, it's like a 1095. I need that. And I was like, well, can I just, I don't know, like take a photo of like what I pay my insurance company every month? I mean, it's in my, bank receipts. And she's like, nah. No, I mean, sure, we could do that, but it's not good enough. Like, this is just, it's a red flag. And, so here I've got her on the phone, and I was supposed to leave the house, and I'm like, okay, I'm not leaving. All right, let's find this, and I'm, I've logged into my healthcare provider, and I'm like, I don't see, any link that says tax forms. She's like, no, you have to go through Covered California, and, all states are different. And it was this whole thing where I was just like, I was so frustrated.
Yeah, no. It's like,
and this was my bad.
It's hair pulling.
It was 100% my bad. I could have at least, even though it was probably still going to be as frustrating to find the document, which I did eventually find.
Yeah.
I could have done it a week prior, or 2 or 3.
No, of course.
And, and not have had this person be like, I have to do this like tomorrow, Sarah, or we have to file an extension, and then we're gonna have to keep talking about this.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I don't even understand how I did it in my 20s. I think my dad did my taxes when I was younger, but enough about taxes. We don't want to bore you too much
let's talk about
there.
death.
Yeah, let's talk. How about let's talk about. I would like to talk a little something about a little something I read on the internets recently.
Okay.
And it's funny because it's fun. There is a moral, but basically, I was really kind of shocked and pleased to see the headline of the New York Magazine, basically saying that, being a French major is so often like deemed this like very impractical, and people who just want to watch, French movies and, new wave and read poetry and whatnot, something like that. And I have a French degree. I have a BA in French, and it's always been something that I've been really proud of, but also like not embarrassed of, but it never was something where I was like, I'm going to do something in my life with this that's going to make me money and be very fruitful. I just loved it so much. And yes, I did love watching New Wave cinema, and that was what lured me into it, among other things. Poetry, not so much, but I loved sort of reading that it is now considered to be one of the fastest growing languages in the world, and that it could start becoming this invaluable like skill. And I was like, whoa, this is like groundbreaking for me because, I knew that it was kind of a weak thing to major in back then, unless I wanted to teach, which I was going to, but then I kind of went into television instead. And I mean, maybe I was onto something back then, but I just insisted on, majoring the language. But the moral of the story is that I love how sort of questionable decisions that you made in your life, like in the past, become like sexier down the road, where you're like, I had no idea this was ever going to happen. And here I am. I don't know. Maybe, because I love the language. I love speaking it. I love studying it. And that's why I majored in it. And I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll use it for something. But email us at hi@havesuchagagoodday.com if you have any thoughts on this crazy discovery.
First of all, I'm glad to hear it because I love French. I wish I had taken French when I was younger, when I had the opportunity to in school. Growing up in California, where Spanish is very prevalent, I always, we must have talked about this before, at least between you and I, Heather. But I always,
Yes.
the few friends that I have that took French was available at my school. I don't remember having any guy friends who took French, but of course they did. But I had a couple of girlfriends who were just like, well, I just like the language, and I was like, that's so stupid though. Like you should learn the language that's going to be helpful to you.
Yes,
Here we are in
exactly.
California, like, I mean, some of the students in high school with me, like English second language. I mean, it would
Yeah.
have been, it's very helpful to speak Spanish, and that obviously goes for lots of other places in the world as well. And I my stance has not changed on that. It still is really helpful. I mean, my Spanish is not as good as it used to be, but it's there. It's
Yeah.
there because I learned it so young. I mean, even before
It's a
high
good
school, I
thing
was
to
taking
have,
like
for
Spanish,
sure.
after school kind of stuff. And but now on Duolingo, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm practicing French. I've just for fun, not really for any reason. I love French, and I feel like, wow, if I had only given it a little bit more of a chance
Yeah.
before being the age that I am, and really trying to kind of double down
It gets kind
how
of
I
harder
have
as you
done.
get older, for
It's a
sure.
lot harder. I mean,
Yeah,
retaining any information is just harder.
So true. When I was recently in the desert, I happened to be there during the same time as a good friend of mine's Spanish family was there, and they don't speak hardly any English at all. And I don't speak a lot of Spanish. I only speak just like the basics. But they spoke a little French because they are from a town that's in northern Spain, so they're very close to the French border. So I was able to actually speak French with them, which was great. And in fact, their French wasn't great, but it was like good enough that we could actually like enjoy.
It was good to have
each
that
other's
option.
company. It
Yeah.
was so great. So yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted. And but for the most important topic of the day, I'd like to switch gears, Sarah. And I know this is going to be something you're going to have an opinion on. But over the weekend, I don't lay around a lot. Like I have my little moments where I'll lay in the morning for a little bit to wake up and drink my coffee and do my routine. But I tend to not lay around during the day on the weekend, to relax. And I really laid around on Sunday, like more than I have ever done, I think, in one day. I went to a yoga class in the morning and it just kind of wiped me out. And I wanted to catch up on some TV. And I was like, you know what? F it. I'm just going to do it. It was raining and it was really nice. And I napped and my cats laid with me all day. They followed me from one room to the next and I laid down in the next room. And and it was really nice. It was like very, very cat lifestyle. And I was just sort of thinking about how, just this whole like crazy cat lady thing that has been sort of always the stigma about women having cats. I really feel like there's been a little bit of a sea change. And it's only getting like less of a stigma because I have a lot of friends, including you, that are not these crazy cat ladies that have like dirty hair and like kibble on
Oh
their,
yeah. I
shirts.
mean, that
And
stereotype is very, it's pretty old fashioned.
It's very old-fashioned.
But it still exists.
it still does. It's still there. It's a misconception that like all women with cats are smelly and have kibble in their hair and like that kind of thing, or weirdos or whatever.
I don't think anybody. I've never heard like, "Oh, you're smelly," but more,
made that
more
up.
of just like, it's because for some reason you're failing as a social
As a person.
otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is here, I get that it maybe looks like that from the outside, the optics. But like seriously, like to get down to the brass tacks here, like cats as a critter, as a creature, they're weirdos, but like mostly in a fun way. They like to snuggle. I mean, they have individuality and they make you laugh like daily. What is there not to like? And I just feel like I'm seeing a lot, and look, I'm not like a prognosticator of like cultural movements, but I do see a lot going on in the social realm and like things that just places that I go online and people that I talk to and things kind of happening. It does feel like it is shifting. It's a little cooler now, because maybe part of it is and this isn't even really new. It's taken a little while to get to this point. I mean, Sarah, you and I started out with like the lolcat, I can has cheeseburger meme stuff, which were very funny and cool back in the day, like early internet. Sure, that was super entertaining, but it was still not as cool as it is now. There's a lot of people on social media. There's some real gems out there. People that are sort of, there's a lot of imagery of like high fashion cat prints, that have maybe helped with this movement. There's, there's these, this is actually from my friend Lisa, who I have like a little bit of a cat thread going with some of my friends. And all these girls are really cool, funny, smart, pretty women. And she was telling me about, and you may have heard about this couple. They were in like the New York Times wedding section. And one of them is a kitten educator. She's like a famous kitten educator, like influencer.
She educates kittens, or she educates people
She
about kittens?
educates people about kittens.
Okay.
And advocates for them.
That's cool.
And she is called the Kitten Lady. You can follow her on Instagram. And then she found this like a cat photographer, and they ended up getting married, and he's on Instagram, and it's a really cute story. I'll send you the link. It's very, very cute. And then there's a lot of like really neat, there's this catnip magazine on Instagram that's by this really cool kind of zine company that is, I should send you a link if you haven't seen it, Sarah, but they have really fun, cool kind of imagery and ideas around cat lifestyle and that kind of thing. And then, there's like Howard Stern's wife. I've talked about this before, Beth Stern. She saves cats' lives every day. I mean, how is that not cool? I mean, she's doing great work. And then people like Taylor Swift shows off her, kits on TikTok. And I mean, she's not a wacky cat mom. There's just a lot of stuff. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on.
She might be wacky, but like,
She
who
might be.
cares?
Who cares?
I don't know.
Anyway.
I think it's like, so first of all, I'm with you on this. In fact, I always joke with people that when I find, some sort of an Instagram account of somebody, it could be male, female, anything in between, doesn't matter. But particularly when it's a guy who's like, I am a cat person and I'm into it and I want to share my life with you. For example, an Instagram account, I don't know if you follow how they're called, Abdul's Cats. Like Abdul S cats. He and his wife
I don't think so.
foster kittens. They, that's their whole thing, is that they have a cat, but then they foster kittens, and then they get the kittens adopted, and then more kittens come in, and that it's a whole thing. They're just adorable people. But many years ago, quite some time, we're over a decade ago now, I was dating this person, it was like early days, and I had mentioned, I have a couple cats. Like, are you allergic? It's always my question. It's like, if you're going to come over to my house, I mean, it would suck if you were allergic. And if you're allergic, there aren't a lot of options.
Yeah.
That goes for dogs and lots of other animals. And he was like, no, I also have a cat. And I remember being like, you do? Because for whatever reason, and again, this is me not being very fair, I was like, oh, you just don't seem like the kind of person. You seemed like the kind of guy who'd be like, oh, you have two cats. Oh,
cat
gosh.
lady.
No, and it was like very much the opposite, and
that's cool.
It was great. I mean, obviously the relationship didn't work out, but the cat thing was always like, oh, cool. Okay, so you get it.
Yeah.
And for a long time, besides when I was a child, and my parents pretty much ran all things pet, I just had cats. I never had a dog.
Yeah.
Now that I've got Otis the dog, it's like, now I've opened my mind to the world of dogs in a way that I just never understood before. I used to be the cat person who would kind of be like, yeah, you're really going on and on about your dog. And now I'm like, my dog has an Instagram account. I can't stop talking about him. I kiss him 40 times a day, maybe 400.
He's your child. And speaking of the Instagram thing, it's like, people are definitely humanizing their pets more and more, partially because of social media, probably a huge reason. Also, the pandemic put cats and pets in general on a pedestal, as they should be, and their emotional support, I mean, and people are definitely deeming their pets, their fur children more, and they're opting for more of an animal family over a human family. That's definitely like a big, I feel like that's happening brewing. I just feel like I talk to a lot of people who are like, no, 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 no human kids. I've got my dog and I got my cats and we're a really happy
Yeah.
family. And it's interesting.
I mean, and one of the things, this doesn't go for everybody, but it does go for me to some extent, is that especially because Otis just scratched his cornea, so I had to take him to the vet a couple of times. He's fine now, or he's going to be fine. But that's stressful and expensive.
Yeah.
And and that's above and beyond the prescription food that I get for him because he's sensitive, and the time that I have to spend with him because he needs exercise and he
like a
needs
kid.
like engagement. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Cats are a little different.
Yeah.
They're, you say like, oh, they just sit there and they're more independent. And sometimes that's kind of true, sometimes not.
I have a cat that follows me around the house like a dog.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
literally.
I know which cat you're talking about.
Yeah.
You got some needy creatures. My cat Ralphie is somewhere in between, but he's not just like a plant that you water.
No.
There's it's not like like some decoration in the corner. It's a family member, and I think, oh my gosh. Imagine if I also had human kids on top of all of this.
Oh, I know.
Like,
I don't
my
know how they
plate
do it.
runneth over.
Yes,
my cup.
exactly.
My plate
your
is full.
cup
My cup
and your
runneth
cat
over.
box. Well, cat boxes do suck. I will say that's probably the worst thing about owning cats, and I think that has caused. It's like gross when you think about it. You've got these boxes in the house. Dogs go outside. I'm saving up for a robot cat box. I don't know if you know much about those or if you've tested any of those, Sarah,
I've seen
but
they are advertised to me on the internet constantly.
I bet. And I have a friend who has one and swears by it because I have like 4 cat boxes in the house. So we have a big house, and I have two cats, and I'm like, this can't be this way for much longer. I can't, like, I need a robot.
It's a lot of maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got one cat, but I also have a very small apartment.
You do.
So the cat, the litter box, can really only go in one place.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't want it in my bathroom, but that's the place.
I know.
It's like, of all the places, I mean, it's not going to be like next to my bed. Can't put it in the kitchen, It's like,
Yeah, there's literally,
food
like,
and everything. It's
yeah.
like, at least the bathroom is sort of this place where things get cleaned regularly. So that's where we do it.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm with you. It's not ideal, but it's part of
buddies.
that's what you sign up for.
That's right.
That's how it goes.
Yep. So we don't want to belabor the cat thing to make you think that
I
we're
think we
crazy
already
cat
have.
ladies. I think we already have. But moving on, we got some great emails from y'all, and
we
man,
did.
I want to reiterate, and you said this last episode, Sarah, that we read all of them, and some of them we reply to in email, and some we talk about on the show. But it doesn't mean that if your email doesn't get on the show, doesn't mean it wasn't a good email.
And
there are
even
various
if
reasons.
there's not a reply, I mean, between Heather and I mean, we really try. But if anything does fall through the cracks, because that does happen, just know that we read everything. We incorporate that into future shows, and your feedback is kind of what keeps us going. So keep it coming.
Yeah, man. So Sarah,
Speaking of, do you want to take this first one from Donnie Don?
yes, I do indeed, because I have some thoughts. Donnie, he wrote in and said, I'm deep into Duolingo because this is a few episodes back. I was all bragging about how into Duolingo I was with French and doing it every day and everything. And I have some revised thoughts about it. So he's saying that, he's doing Spanish, not French. And he says that the gamification on the app is silly. He thinks it's silly. He's there to learn Spanish, not to climb a leaderboard, get trophies, compete with people, or earn gems to spend on in-app items. But if those things motivate some people, then that's fine. The one thing that I think the app really gets wrong is the 5-minute mistake limit for non-subscribers. They're serving me ads, so they're making money off me, but they'll stop my learning process and stop serving me ads if I make a total of 5 mistakes in a day. Being frustrated by this app behavior has caused me to remember that I have a Rosetta Stone software from years ago that I could be using. So instead of the gamification driving me further into the Duolingo app, it's actually driving me away from them to a competitor. I still might add you as a friend though, LOL, which I hope you do. I'm not sure if you did yet, and I apologize if I haven't seen that, because my little icon is frozen right now because I haven't been doing it regularly. But man, I've been on a road trip. I'm busy. You know,
Yeah.
I think I should put like a little like out on vacation little note in my settings so it stops pinging me.
Oh
But
man.
seriously,
Yeah.
Donnie Don, I feel your pain. You know, I have a different feeling about Duolingo right now, and I'm frustrated with it. And for a lot of the same reasons that you are, you know, the mistake thing. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things these days though that drive me away from using the product, like certain marketing. You know, I mean, I could probably come up with 10 things off the top of my head, but the leaderboard does not motivate me. The gamification doesn't motivate me. Yeah, I just want to learn French. And the one thing I will say, I like some of the voices of the little, you know, the little people. Some are amusing and silly, and some are not funny and lame or whatever. But like, I do enjoy that part of it. And it's fun in the sense that it's not like reading a textbook. So yeah, I don't know what the Rosetta Stone is like, but maybe, you know, report
Rosetta
back.
Stone is that's been around for
More hardcore though.
ages.
Yeah, and it's
It,
like, is it fun though, or is it more like schoolwork?
it
Is
used
my
to be
question.
more encyclopedic, I guess
Yeah.
you would say. Like, you know, you get like the Rosetta Stone. It was expensive.
I remember
you
it
know,
being
for,
expensive.
you know, a language, but like it was like, I mean, it was like hardcore. Like you would use this in like a college class, you
Yeah,
know, for
totally.
like higher learning about, you know, language stuff. Donnie Don, it's funny. I'm also, I've sort of paused Duolingo, which is ironic because I just paid because the ads became so annoying to me that I'm like, yeah, I'll just
Yeah,
pay for like Duolingo Plus, whatever they call
for
it.
the year.
Duolingo
Yeah.
Pro, yeah. And I didn't do enough I wasn't paying enough attention. And it turns out like a year subscription is not like $10. It's like $80. And
It's like
so
60 something, I thought.
well, mine was 80 something.
Oh, wow.
For
Okay.
sure. Who even knows? But it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and like, you know, look at subscription options. And then it was like, you get 30 days free, you know, because it's trying to, you know, upsell you. And so what I always do with things like this when I'm not sure if I want to pay or not, you know, I put a little note in my calendar, you know, the day before, unsubscribe, you know, if I decide that, you know, I don't want to, so that I don't get charged for something that isn't worth my money. And with Duolingo, you know, I saw the notice on my calendar and I was like, it is actually like way nicer without the ads, so I'll just keep it. And then when I got charged, I was like, holy moly. Now, this is all on me because you know, it's up to me to know what I'm paying for. So that was just sort of a dumb, you know, brain fart of mine. But then my life got busy too, and I don't mind the gamification aspect of it. I'm not really competing with anybody. In fact, one of my cousins is like, oh my gosh, she's on Duolingo so much. I don't even know what language she's doing. Like, we don't like talk about it, but I'll give her little
Does she
accolades.
high five you?
Yeah. It's like I don't know. I find that kind of fun, you know, and
Yeah.
pretty non-intrusive. But yeah, Donnie Don, we get it. It's
We hear you loud and clear.
it's funny what does motivate people. You know, I'm not a competitive. Well,
I'm competitive with myself.
I'm competitive about certain things, but you know, it's we've talked before about like organized sports. It's like group sports. I would just rather never compete because I'm so afraid that I'm going to let people down. That I'm like, yeah, like, you know, we were talking about tennis, right? It's like with tennis, it's like, well, you let yourself down, but at least you don't let anybody but yourself down. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know, unless you've got a coach who really cares. But anyway, Donnie Don also wrote in, and I'm not going to read this part because I feel like it's kind of personal, but said real nice things to me about my cancer journey, and that they also had a family member who was going through cancer, and there was a COVID situation. It was pretty touch and go, and you know, a hospital stay, and that you know, reminded Donnie Don that a lot of people are going through a lot of things, and you know, I am paraphrasing, but I think I get your sentiment, my friend, that you know, it's always good for us to remind ourselves that Well, maybe you do know somebody well enough to know exactly what they're going through, but chances are you don't. And there's a lot of stuff that's really, really difficult as we navigate this thing called life, and good to remember that you know a good deed, a hug, a smile.
100%.
Even a wink, unless it's weird, and then don't wink. But it's a good way to go through life. So that was a real nice email. So thanks for that.
Yeah, very sweet. I enjoyed that immensely too. And then, it's funny. There's certain things we talk about, like that. I think sometimes I'm like, oh, is this too like personal? Not personal in like a scandalous way, but like maybe just so random personal.
Yeah,
where
like
where I
not
mention-
relatable enough.
Yeah, but I found this subject that I talked about a few weeks ago about when you lose stuff in your house that like is just really bizarre things, like everyday things, like how could it have gotten up and walked away? I mean, how do you lose something like that? And so several people wrote in. Gabby wrote in, I had a bundle of gift certificates and gift cards that I literally looked for years until I was packing to go somewhere one day and found them in the pocket of the suitcase or backpack. I can't remember which one. They were missing for at least 4 years. It's so funny.
Gabby, I've been there.
It's the best too. I mean, that just reminds me of like, where I found a chapstick I was looking for in a jacket I haven't worn for a year, since last year. Little things that you find in your pockets that, why didn't I check there back then? Or maybe it just crawled back
because it was
on
a
its
weird
own.
place. Yeah, and in that vein, Ron also wrote in and said, I can't find my 2 pizza pans. They should be with my baking sheets in a cupboard above the stove. It doesn't make any sense that I would put them anywhere else. Been looking for the past few days. Okay, so Ron, I had to laugh, not because, first of all, I hope you found your pizza pan since you emailed us, but if you haven't, I have to laugh, not ha ha, but it's like spooky because I'm the same way. So my Apple TV remote currently missing. Now, my Apple TV, anybody who has an Apple TV remote knows that it's a slippery little sucker and it'll go into any crevice it can.
Yeah.
But I know where it goes. The Apple TV remote never really, it's either like on my couch, on my coffee table. It might be by my bed if I happen to be, doing stuff, which is not even very often, but okay, might be there. Maybe on this other little table that I sit at sometimes when I'm watching TV, but it doesn't go far. Like I'm never going to take into the bathroom or even the kitchen, or definitely not outside, because why would I ever, I've never lost anything as often as that remote. But
too.
I know where to look for it. Because I know where it goes. And I mean, we tore apart my couch multiple times looking for this. It's not there. I mean, it's not. I didn't like unzip one of my couch cushions and put it in there. You know what I mean? It's like, unless I'm really sleepwalking in a bad way and I don't realize it, it doesn't make any sense. Was it eaten? Did it get flushed down a toilet somehow? Was it thrown in a garbage mistakenly?
Maybe Otis ate it.
I don't think so. He's just not. It doesn't make any sense. And I know that it's going to show up and I'm going to laugh and go, oh my gosh, why was it inside the shoe or something really
totally.
weird? Like something obviously, like maybe I was moving too fast and it like
It
flew
like flicked
and
across
just,
the room.
yeah, like it's like in a drawer, or like in a duvet somewhere. But the fun thing is that while we were looking for the remote and looking in strange places, a pillowcase that I've also been missing for months was found.
Wow.
And it was just like, so I've got this, I've got this sheet set, right? It's like 2 pillowcases, top and a bottom sheet. And, you wash the sheets, you put them back on the bed, et cetera, et cetera. And one day as I'm making my bed, I'm like, well, where's my other pillowcase? Well, that's weird. Huh, I wonder where it is. Oh, it must have, it's back in the dryer, or maybe I dropped it, bringing it back up. Couldn't find it. Luckily, I have another set of sheets, so now I'm using these like other pillowcases that match each other but don't match the rest of the bed. So like, who cares? I'm only sleeping. The world didn't end. But then we found the pillowcase. We found the pillowcase, and The person who found it was not me, so kudos to you, person who found it. And they were like, "Do you need? Why is this like stuffed weirdly down, like down behind like your headboard in like a weird place?" And I was like, "I don't know.
It's very.
I didn't do it
it's,
on purpose, but I've been looking
it's
for that for
fascinating.
quite some
and
time."
then these things just pop up, you know? Like then one day it's like in your drawer when you're like, I swear I searched like everywhere in that drawer 8 times. It
Oh yeah,
wasn't there.
yeah, yeah.
Did someone just little gnome come in and like replace it?
I mean,
And like, are
I'm
they
not
laughing at us?
convinced that the Apple TV remote is still not somehow in my couch somewhere, because
Yeah,
that's
it's
almost
probably in your
always where it
couch.
goes. But I've torn it apart. But I've also done that before and then found it later.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I looked so hard, but like clearly not hard enough. Like,
The joke's on us, Sarah.
how hard do you have to look? These things. Anyway,
crazy making.
the only time, especially you, Gabby, saying that you had looked for, gift certificates for like literally several years, then finally found them like long after you were just like, oh, they're gone forever. The only time I'm happy about something like that is when it's money.
Oh, it's
You
so
know,
great.
you ever
You
find a
like
20,
spot.
you
Oh,
know,
it's
in
so
a
great.
pocket
Yeah.
of like some like shorts that you like decided you didn't like,
the
but never
best.
like, I don't know, gave away, and you're like,
I
oh,
found two tens. I found two tens the other day in a butt pack I haven't worn in a while, and that was pretty exciting.
especially since $10 bills are kind of hard to come by.
They are kind of. I know they're like kind of fun. And sometimes
Yeah.
like you don't want to break a 20. But before we wrap up, and we're going to be wrapping up here in a second. But I want to mention that our buddy Bill Baggins upgraded.
Hey,
And,
Bill Baggins.
we are pumped. So y'all out there, if you feel like upgrading, go for it because it's
Yeah.
feels really good.
Yeah, it really does. We know that, obviously on Patreon. And by the way, if you want to know more about how to become a patron and directly support the show, patreon.com/have such a good day is where to find out more about that. But we know that for a variety of reasons, sometimes people can pledge more money, pledge less money. Sometimes people drop off. Sometimes people come back. It's always kind of nice, but when someone says, "Hey, listen, it's not you, it's me, but I'll be back. Don't worry. I just, I can only pay for so many things in a month." I hear that. There are lots of things that I want to throw money at and can't always do it myself. So we totally understand. But just a reminder that we're a humble little show of two. We do this for y'all. So if you enjoy the show, please do consider becoming a patron, because that's how we keep the lights on around here.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
with
it's
that,
a community.
yeah, it is a community. We certainly, it is no two women are an island, Heather. I think that's
I
the
don't know.
famous
Maybe
saying.
we are.
Yeah,
We might be.
I've mixed quite a few metaphors on the show. But blame the chemotherapy. I blame it on everything these days. Like, can't remember that word, and my hands are numb. Yay!
Yeah.
But my eyelashes
Got
are
a good
growing back.
excuse. Yay! That's exciting. Hey, springtime. Spring has sprung.
It's
literally on your
2023.
face.
It's gonna be our year, Heather. It's gonna be our
It
year.
is so going to be our year. I'm just waiting for it. Wait for it.
And we
In the
hope
meantime.
we hope that wherever you are in the world, whether it's spring, whether it's fall, whether it's raining, whether it's hot, and I don't know, you've got crazy cats. We'd love to have you along for the ride. We'll be back doing it next week for episode 187, which again I believe is a murder reference. So it's gonna be one of them shows, Heather.
It's
You better
gonna be
not.
a dark
don't
one.
cross me.
It's going to be goth.
Yeah, it's gonna be. You can't see us, but next week we'll be very goth. Okay.
Very, very goth.
Yeah, just think of it that way. But until then, I will remain Sarah.
And I will remain Heather. Have such a good day. Ciao.
Ciao.
What if I left in my blah, 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 blah? Maybe I will.